What's the most hurtful thing you've overheard about yourself by accident? My wife had a falling out with some friends of mine that she met through me. We had known them a long time, but I had known them for longer. I was upset with her one night because they were always asking why she never came around anymore, but she absolutely refused to see them. I always thought it was because of this little side business project they went into together that didn't work out. So I'm driving my wife somewhere and I just start getting upset with her that she won't make up with them, and move past it like they did. And it sucks that she never comes with me when I go over there. So she finally broke and told me the truth. Every time she went over there without me, they would talk crap about me, put down my personality, my humor, and much more. I guess they thought she would be okay with it, like a joking, haha, my husband can be such a blank, right? But she wasn't okay with it. She's not a confrontational person, so she never really spoke up. But she was disgusted by the way they talked about me behind my back, and refused to have anything to do with them. She had been letting me think it was all her fault, and she took it, because she knew that the truth would hurt my feelings. And it did. We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description. Story 2. Went out to a bar with some friends for a birthday party for my ex-girlfriend. She really messed me up when she left me, like really bad. But I was trying to be nice since she invited me, so I figured I would go out and be there for a drink or two. So a mutual friend had been broken up with a few days before and was there. So as I made the rounds, I talked to her and tried to do whatever I could to let her know that it would be okay. I'm no therapist, but I did my best, you know? I knew what a bad breakup felt like, as I was also going through one, so I tried to help. Anyway, after I left the table, I overheard her talking to my ex at the bar about me trying to give her advice, and she said, "Well, nobody has ever loved him, so what does he know about any of this?" And then they started laughing. Don't think that they know I heard, but I grabbed my coat immediately and took a long walk home. I don't need people like that in my life. Haven't willingly seen either of them since. Is this not like a bit of a self-report for the ex? Like, oh, I never loved my boyfriend. You think that's a flex? I'm confused. Story 3. I was copied into an email conversation where about 10 messages earlier, one of my employees had described me as an idiot and suggested to the recipients that they don't get me involved in the situation they were discussing. I had always thought we got on well, and it knocked my confidence. I think some important context is missing. Were you looped in by accident or on purpose? Or was it someone who was part of it and was like, hey, that's not cool, I should send it to this dude? Because if that last one is true, then that dude is a homie. The other two both kinda suck. Story 4. I just moved into my dorm for my second year of college. My roommate was my best friend since 9th grade. My stuff hadn't arrived yet, and it was my time to register, so I asked him if I could use his computer. He said sure. I sat down, and he had AIM open to a conversation with another friend of ours. I didn't scroll up, but from what was just visible on the screen, they were talking about how weird I was, and how awful it would be to room with me. I closed it so he wouldn't realize later that I'd seen it. I registered and then left. We still lived together that year, but we didn't hang out at all, we just cohabitated. I never asked him to hang out as friends, and he never asked me. Move-out day that year was the last time we spoke. That was over 10 years ago. We chatted every day for 6 years, and then haven't spoken since. I still don't know if I did or said something to flip how he felt about me, or if he never really liked me to begin with. The possibility of the latter really screws up your future friendships. Hell, the former does too. Knowing apparently you're capable of unknowingly saying or doing something to throw away a 5-year friendship. Just so everyone knows, if this happens to you, it's not your fault. If they don't want to confront you about whatever is bothering them, that's their problem. Like, yeah, it super sucks to think that you know someone and then have them turn on you, but at the same time, if they're not gonna talk about what you did and, like, you have no idea what happened, then what can you do? Story 5. Everyone I'd invited to my first sleepover laughing while reading my diary entries about how my dad had been abusing me. I'd left the room and one had gone snooping. It was worse when they wouldn't stop or give it back when I burst in and pleaded with them to. And then everyone laughed even harder. That was the first and last time I wrote anything real like that in a diary. Story 6. When my oldest sister died, my older sister was crying to my mother about how she felt alone. My mother was trying to reassure her and said, "You still have OP though." But my sister said, "Who cares about her? I want oldest sister back." I kinda get it, but this was around the same time my mother told me to my face that it should have been me who died instead, because I don't have a husband or kids like my oldest sister did. It seemed like absolutely no one wanted me in the family, and they all wished I could have switched places with the one we lost. People wonder why I'm depressed now. Story 7. I went to school with a black eye and busted nose from my dear old dad. Child Services was called to do a home check. My mom and dad told the worker I'd done it to myself, and I wanted to unalive myself, and that I'd written in my diary that I wanted to unalive my little brother. I didn't even have a diary, and of all the people I was close to, my little brother was number 1. It got me a blacker eye and an involuntary stay in a locked ward. I bailed ASAP. Story 8. Background: I'm 12 years younger than my older sisters, and I was unplanned. At age 7, I overheard my mom crying and saying that I was the reason she didn't love my dad anymore, / why we were poor, / why she isn't happy, and that she didn't want to be a mom anymore. She said she didn't know how to love someone who ruined her entire life. It was Christmas Eve, and she was drunk talking to her best friend on the phone. It broke my heart / spirit, and that was only the beginning of my awful childhood. Side note, I'm 29 now and moved out when I was 15 to protect myself. I have no contact with my parents, and I'm fully aware it wasn't my fault I was born, but damn, the memory still screws me up. Story 9. My best friend's story, not mine, but figured it's worth sharing. We'll call her Carrie. She was born super premature, but she ended up completely fine. Like, you would never know unless you saw pictures of when she was born. Anyway, when she was around 8, she was at the top of the stairs, head peeking through the banister, secretly listening to her parents argue downstairs. They were arguing about how her dad was too hard on her brother for his grades. Her mom says, "Well, why aren't you that hard on Carrie? She doesn't get straight A's either." And her dad responds, "Carrie was born premature. She's probably mentally disabled." Story 10. I was sick, septic, dying in the ER at the local hospital. I had tubes coming in and out of me. I had IV antibiotics, and I didn't know if I was going to make it through the night. My family was at my house, and my niece who was with me called the house and put them on speaker. I heard my mom telling them all about how she didn't care about me and never had. She was only there to make sure my nephew was okay, and that I got dirty diseases from being gay and sleeping with everyone in town. No, it wasn't an STD. No, I didn't get it from sleeping around, and I haven't bothered with her since. There's like casual, offhanded bigotry, and then there's this. This is competitive, ranked bigotry. And OP's mom is going for spot number 1. Like, how crazy, insensitive, and just stupid you have to be like, my son is dying, but that's fine because he's gay and it's his fault. Like, oh my god. Story 11. I saw 2 girls that I roomed with for a short while in college had been publicly posting on Facebook about how weird, annoying, and disrespectful I was. Their reasoning was that I was taking an 8:30 a.m. class and only weirdos do that, and that I made a crap ton of noise every morning and disrupted their sleep. It hurt because I tried really hard to not be disruptive. I wouldn't let my alarm go off because I woke up naturally around the time it was scheduled to and would just turn it off before it beeped. This was partially out of anxiety. I changed clothes in the bathroom, tiptoed everywhere, and wouldn't even eat or zip my backpack in the room because I wanted to be quiet. As far as I know, neither of them ever woke up any of those mornings, and they never said anything to me about it. Story 12. I went to school for a year for baking and pastry arts. There was a program-wide competition, and I was one of the only people in our section that wanted to compete. During an exam, I'm waiting for some sugar to boil, so I'm standing by the front of the room at a burner. And the other chef in charge of the competition comes in to talk to our chef. They're whispering to each other for a few seconds, and then I clearly hear our chef say, "Well, it's not that she's bad." He shoulder checks, sees that I'm staring right at him, and they step out of the room. Looking back at it now, they were probably just surprised that I wanted to compete, since I'm definitely not the most outgoing person in the university. But at the time, I was devastated. Story 13. Not overheard, but actually read in a file about me. My mother passed away suddenly, and I received a file from my father that she was meaning to give me. It was a psychological profile, and along with it, tests, personality tests, and other stuff. This wasn't a surprise to me since I'm autistic and have been in therapy as a child. There was a part, however, about my family and their trouble with living with me. Especially my brothers and my dad were having trouble coping, and learning my existence pained them was difficult. My parents got divorced basically because of me, and my brothers were embarrassed by me. I'm doing better than I expected. I was never supposed to be living on my own. There was some talk about assisted living or even an institution. But somehow I managed to leave home as soon as I turned 18. I got married, had kids, and even though I struggle a lot, I get by. I even have a good relationship with all of my brothers, even though they still have trouble treating me as an adult. It's like always thinking everybody knows you're mentally disabled except you, and then finding out it's true. Story 14. My boss mocking me to my entire team. To be fair, I was being a bit of a female dog, but it wasn't without reason. The product I was working on was not working as intended, so I kept getting farther and farther behind overall. When I brought up my concerns with production potentially contaminating my product and causing it to behave incorrectly, he told me that the product wasn't the problem. I was, because I wasn't working fast enough. I got extremely frustrated because I had zero support on this and massive pressure. And I needed to get this done, so with frustration, tears running down my face, I snapped something along the lines of, "Okay, fine, I guess this is just how we do business now. I'll push it through." An hour later, I heard him behind the hoods in his most high-pitched, condescending, mocking girl voice to everyone I closely work with. I'm the only female on my team, repeating, "Okay, fine, I guess this is just how we do business now, I'll push it through," while he incorrectly recounted our conversation, making me look really bad. The worst part, though? There really was a problem with production. It was a huge one, and he took credit for discovering it. My team does not respect me anymore after that. I'm now just talked down to. It feels so horrible that I let my emotions get the better of me just once. And in the matter of 5 minutes, everyone's perception of me changed so drastically that I can't get anyone to take anything I say seriously. It has gotten so bad that I'm looking for another job, and I'm willing to take significantly lower pay just to escape the emotional female ghost that now haunts me. Story 15. I'm probably blocking out the worst cases. I've learned it's pretty much human nature to talk trash about anyone who isn't present, so no reason to take it personally. But when you're a kid, it's a miserable experience. The worst case recently. I have a weird neurological problem in my shoulder and arm that no one has ever been able to diagnose. During an intense flare-up, I was referred to a physical therapist by a friend. The therapist saw me once and recommended surgery. I was very reluctant to take this advice, but I didn't say no. I called the surgeon she recommended. Turned out he wasn't accepting new cases. The second appointment, there was a scheduling error and I arrived 30 minutes too early. I sat in the front of the office and listened to the therapist making small talk with another patient about how her next patient was a psycho, trying to fabricate some kind of malpractice case and refusing to comply with her advice. The receptionist was sitting right in front of me, also listening. But she didn't run back to stop it, so it went on for quite a while. If I had been a psycho trying to manufacture a legal case against her, she was kind enough to do all the work for me. Story 16. I was in college in the earlier days of Facebook when the feed was a new feature. In my feed, I see that these girls I was friendly with posted a picture album of themselves posing with a hanging mobile that they made like an art project. In the mobile, hanging there from a coat hanger, were photos of really creepy, skeevy guys. And also pictures of guys at our school that were generally known to be a little weird. I saw a picture of myself hanging from it too, and was devastated. These were girls I knew who were friends of mine. I write them a note confronting them about it, but did it in a nice way, telling them I was deeply hurt to see myself on there and apologizing if I ever offended them in any way. They were super embarrassed but also maturely apologetic, and insisted they would prefer to be my friend. They also rightfully pointed out character traits in me that led them to want to put my picture there in the first place. And it gave me some good introspection to change myself for the better. This was 10 years ago and I still think about it. Still have the message history in Facebook from back then too. How did this end up so well? Also, I want to know what these character traits were where OP could hear them and be like, yeah, that warrants me being put on a creepy mobile of weird dudes. What did you do, OP? Because from this, I can only assume you were creepy. Story 17. Heard two of my only friends at the time planning to go out later, making sure to ditch the redhead, me. They had been my only friends since I could remember. After I let my mom know I was dating a girl she knew and really approved of, I heard my mom talking on the phone immediately to a friend of hers, saying that she was disappointed in the girl's choice and hoped that she would try dating other people. Heard a group of people I was out with talking about me in a pretty bad way, and my best friend at the time joining in. All that was over a decade ago now. In college, I really focused on getting better socially, and I went to a faraway college where I could get a fresh start, where I didn't know a single person. Made a great career for myself and moved to a town in a different state with a beautiful girl who I didn't tell my family about till we were engaged. And now I run a very successful business and am pretty well liked from what I can tell. Coming home for Christmas, though, is like I'm back in high school again. The way I'm treated here by even my own family is super toxic. It's no wonder I was socially awkward as a kid. Story 18. In sophomore year of high school, I had 3 girls who bullied me mercilessly. I heard a lot of things that hurt my feelings, but the worst one was this one day when my dad was helping me carry things into school for a project. We passed by one of the girls with some of her friends who didn't know me, and I heard her go, "Why does she dress like that? She's so freaking weird. She's literally always freaking happy about every little thing. It's so freaking annoying." Really loud. My dad and I both heard it. He is very socially awkward, so he couldn't bring himself to say anything. He also didn't want to acknowledge that he heard it because I think he just thinks that I don't want him to bring it up. I just kind of saw this heart break in his eyes. I can imagine his pain. I know I would break down in tears if someone ever said something mean about him whether he was there or not. We both just kept walking and we stopped talking. It was a long and silent walk. I don't know why she criticized what I was wearing. I was wearing leggings and a plain t-shirt. I felt better in junior year at one point. The bullying had gotten so bad that they would tweet about me and then throw me down farther if I tried to stand up for myself. They'd make up names for me and whisper them to me when I was doing presentations in class to throw me off. One time I found out my grandmother died while I was in class, and one of the girls goes, "Oh my god, she's crying!" really loud. Thankfully, my teacher did not put up with her. They also bullied her daughter at points, though I was the main target. She would tell them off. One even physically wrecked my school project. Anyway, one day I just couldn't handle it. During my free period, I went to the auditorium and just cried. I didn't know the tech director was in there with some of my peers. They came up to me and I remember saying something like, "How do you handle it when someone doesn't like you?" And they all knew who I was talking about. I remember these sweet kids. Most of them were a part of the LGBTQ+ community, and they knew what it felt like to be bullied. They told me that I was beautiful and smart and that everyone in the school, it was a tiny school, liked me, and the bullies just couldn't handle that. They also told me that the bullies couldn't handle that I was happy in life. That always stuck with me. It changed my view. The girls were all overweight and rude and mean. They were always complaining too. It was clear they weren't happy. Later on, one of them tried to sabotage me in senior year by taking my project I worked on for months and tore it to shreds. It was a trifold board, and she ripped everything off and scribbled on it. The principal knew what I was going through and told me that if I thought it was sabotage, they would treat it as such, which is reason to suspend or even expel. I believe in karma, so I told them I believed her that it was an accident, and she was let go with a detention. Well, karma did get them. One of them was arrested a few weeks after graduation. Another was dumped by her boyfriend and is randomly suffering from hair loss. The third dropped out of college or was kicked out, which is likely for her. But I did, of course, get my own little revenge on the girl who wrecked my project before graduation. We were friends for a few months in freshman year when we were both new. I had a stick of concealer in my backpack that she always borrowed. One day I realized it was what made me break out. I kept it in the bottom of my bag for 4 years without a cap, collecting crumbs and dirt and bacteria. I had completely forgotten about it. Well, this girl has the nerves to ask me to borrow it one day in senior year after wrecking my project. I gently wiped the top of it off so it appeared clean and let her borrow it. She came in that week with horrible skin. She had broken out everywhere. I didn't even feel bad. OP just laid out a whole supervillain origin story and didn't seem to end up like a supervillain. That's crazy. I will say with confidence that OP handled this a lot better than I would have. That gets a lot of respect from me. I'm also surprised with how willing the school administration was to help out. That doesn't seem to happen very often in cases of bullying. That means OP must have been a really good student and actually truly well liked. Because I just hear so many cases where bullying gets reported to administration and they just can't do anything about it or don't care. I don't know. Bullying sucks. Kids just can suck so bad sometimes.